And everybody, Yukiro here. The original video I was going to release for you all was a Has-Been Hotel video. Unfortunately that won't be the case because I'm going away tomorrow. And the video I did have ended up, I kind of scuffed it. I accidentally recorded it muted. So instead I'm just going to read it, chapter 2 of Adventures of the Crown and play this game while I'm at it. So then you all have something to listen to, or watch I should say, while you're listening to the chapter. So this is a book I've read myself. This is chapter 2. For those of you who missed the first one, the book is called Adventures of the Crown. And it should still be up on my channel. Okay, so, without further ado, at first, neither the man nor the woman spoke. After being disturbed by the strange human's entrance, the Enoan eyed him suspiciously. She obviously needed no aid in dispatching the skeletons here, in the catacombs. This was evident by the mounds of bone dust scattered around her. To say he was impressed would have been an understatement. Hazel eyes narrowed at the man as she looked at him up and down. She was certainly not expecting anyone else here, or at least no one alive, anyway. The lips thinned, and she kept her sword ready for battle. She did not attack, however. "Sorry for interrupting," he said calmly, though he held his own sword ready. He had no intention of harming the woman, and he hoped she would understand he was no threat to her. "I wasn't expecting anyone else down here," he admitted. The woman narrowed her eyes at him further. She was obviously regarding him with skepticism. "I wouldn't linger if I were you," she said, her tone almost feral. "The dead walk here." The man tipped his head forward towards her, his look one of understanding. "I know," he said, still keeping a calm tone. "I'm here because of that reason." At his words, the woman raised a brow. She eyed him up and down once more, before speaking again. "Not a treasure hunter, then?" "Still, I would advise against going further." Chuckling, the man shrugged his shoulders. "And you? I can't imagine that you are lost. You certainly seem to be sure of yourself down here," he said, pointing to the lumps of dust and bones littering the woman's feet. "I'm here to stop this madness." "Quite like yourself, it seems," she said, her tone icy. "I have no wish to engage you in battle, and you would be wise not to engage me either." "I don't desire a fight with you," he agreed, nodding twice. "There would be little to gain from battling against you." "We're here for the same thing, as you said yourself. I was hoping we might work together, actually." At the man's words, the woman raised her brow again. Her curiosity shone easily upon her face. "To what end?" she asked cautiously. "To kill whatever old guard or demon that causes the dead to rise." "What else?" the man said with a confused frown. Apparently, it wasn't obvious to the woman that they would have bigger chances at this task together than alone. She frowned at his words for a moment, before speaking, her tone harsh. "No mortal can kill a god, even an old one. That's the problem with humans. You are always so foolish to believe you can do the impossible." She paused for a moment, rolling her eyes. "How do you even manage to get this far, I don't know. The path I took was littered with traps. A man as foolish as you would not have passed through without setting them off. I must have come another way in." The man spoke with a shrug of his shoulders. "There were no traps for me." This seemed to irritate the woman a little. Her eyes twitched. and she stared at the man for a long while. She sighed heavily, and then tipped her head towards one of the paths ahead. I cannot tell if you are lucky or stupid. But fine. If you wish for your death so much, then you can come with me, she said, offering the man a hand, though she did so almost reluctantly. I'd go, even if you said you would not like my company, the man said, grinning widely at the woman. He shook her hand, nevertheless, and shook it. Name's Fenrin, by the way, he added, offering a polite smile. The woman wrinkled her nose, but nodded her head. The name is Lynette, if you must call me by name, she said with an unamused tone. Fenrin was unsure if she simply distrusted him because he was a stranger, or if it was because he was human. The Enerowin did not have much love for humanity, and he could not blame her for any distrust she showed. The people had been enslaved once long ago, and even now they were still regarded as savages by most humans, though that could not be further from the truth. Then let us continue on, Lynette. I suspect we are not much further from the cause of all the undead here. Fenrir nodded. He allowed her to lead them further down into the catacombs. Darkness seemed to snuff out even the torches that Lynette lit along the way, making their descent more intense. With each step, the tunnels had widened into a larger cavern passageways, which were more natural in build than the previous tunnels. Fenrir suspected that these caverns predated the catacombs by hundreds of years. Lynette was not much for one for conversation, Fenrir noticed. She would give him mumbled responses to his questions about the caves, but cared little for idle chatter. Instead, she would give him a glaring look whenever he tried. He gave up trying after a while, and now the two moved in almost eerie silence. The little information she had been willing to give him was things he already knew about the catacombs. Some of the old races of Terra often dug large crypts down into the earth to be as near the old god of death as possible. Of course, these races were regarded as demons and evil creatures. The old god was no longer alive, or so it was said. The goddess of death had taken up the task, but she was no more monstrous than the goddess of Utopia was. In fact, the new gods were said to be neutral, but were still unpredictable in their actions, and it was best not to anger any of them. We haven't seen any new corpses since we left the catacombs, Fenrir spoke quietly. He held the torch out in front of himself, trying to see the path ahead. Lynette gave a mumbled of agreement. She paused in her steps, and then glanced towards him. I was expecting more too, she said finally. Her tone seemed unsure, and she looked back the way they had come. You do not think we made a wrong turn somewhere, do you? He asked, following her gaze. Lynette shook her head slowly. No, she said quietly. This is the way. In fact, the fact that it is getting darker is a good sign. There should be more dead here, not less. What do you mean? He asked, confused. The reason behind the walking dead. It should be luring them towards it, she explained, shifting nervously on the spot. I suppose it could have gathered most of the dead already, and the ones we came across were simply slower, and had not yet gathered near it. Fenrir gave a thoughtful sound, and then he nodded his head. Then we can expect to fight a lot of undead when we get closer, correct? Theoretically, yes. But something is strange about this place, Lynette quietly spoke. She seemed almost afraid now. Perhaps someone got here before us? And did what? Killed the old god for us? Wouldn't the dead return to the afterlife if that was true? Or maybe you believe they released it upon the surface? Fenrir asked, now watching her curiously. There is no old god here, dead or alive, Lynette muttered. She looked back to the man and frowned deeply. The reason behind all this is an artifact. Though it is true that it once belonged to the old god of the underworld. Fenrir blinked in disbelief. He had not thought about such an item being behind such chaos. Though it did make things easier than trying to kill an immortal being without the Godslayer sword, though he soon realised what she was implying. You think someone got here before us and took the item for themselves? He asked. He knew that if something like that were true, then he would have to find them, and quickly. Lynette nodded slowly. You must hurry, she said urgently. We cannot allow anyone to use it. Only someone with evil intent would want such a thing to themselves. We must destroy it. Fenrir could not agree more, and he continued to move forward. Then we best hurry and find out if the item's still here or not. If they have already left, then we need to backtrack as quickly as possible. He spoke with his words swiftly as he quickened his pace. Lynette watched him for a moment, her head tilting to one side. I'm not worried at all, Fenrir said, glancing behind himself with a grin. The Enorwyn are a good people, and I doubt you would use such evil things for yourself. Lynette found her cheeks flushing ever so slightly. This man was truly an idiot. Who would believe in her so easily like that? Though she was surprised to hear him call her by her true racial name, and not by the common slang name of elf that humans often called her people. Truthfully, most humans could not tell the difference between her people, the Malruthia, or the Deathridu. The Malruthia were those of her people that had lost their nomadic lifestyles after being enslaved for centuries. They were mostly a free people in this day and age, but now lived as the humans did. Deathridu were said to be followers of the goddess of death, for they lived deep underground and were rarely seen at all. Not much was known about them at all. Her people, the Enorwyn, were believed to be the truest and purest of the three. They had not submitted to human rule, and had continued to live a nomadic lifestyle. Lynette let out a sigh, then shrugged her shoulders. She wasn't going to admit that he had surprised her, and there were more pressing matters to attend towards. Let us hurry then, she said, following Fenrir. The way ahead led into a wide cave. It was almost completely dark here, and even the torch gave off little to no light. The magic here is even stronger, Fenrir said, frowning deeply. It feels almost like it's strangling the life out of everything in the area. Lynette nodded slowly. This is the shrine to the old god of death, so it makes sense for it to still hold powerful magic. Wait, do you hear that? She asked, her voice growing quiet. She raised the torch helplessly in front of herself, but the darkness refused to relent to the light at all. We are not alone here, Fenrir mumbled quietly. He stood still next to the woman, his sword ready for the first sign of danger. He struggled to see anything in the cave, however, and this caused him to tense up. He had expected a fight here, but he had not taken into account any kind of magic. He cursed himself inwardly for not being smarter in his plans. So that was chapter 2 of my book. Hopefully you enjoyed me reading it. I know it's not exactly what I usually do on my channel, but I wanted to try something different again, and people seemed to enjoy it when I read the first chapters, so I thought I'd continue to read it. It is on Kindle and Amazon if you wanted it on ebook or paperback. You can also find it in several places online, such as Mega Novel, Good Novel. I believe it's also on iReader, but those apps you have to pay per word per chapter, so it can get quite expensive. So I would recommend, if you did want to buy the book, that you do so on Kindle or Amazon. When I wrote this book in 2008, it's technically not the first in the series. That's a whole other issue. But when I wrote it in 2018, I never took into account the fact that if I ever had to pronounce my own racial names for my my own races in the book, obviously with my dyslexia, I struggle to pronounce things and read things. My brain just kind of stops working. So knowing now what I've learnt about naming things, I definitely probably would have named the elves something easier. I was going for something different, something slightly fresh, but while not changing too much about them. They're not exactly elves, but in appearance and everything else, they pretty much are. So I wanted to give them a whole new name, sort of like differentiate them from elves, because they're not going to be, standard elves, as it were. But yeah, I would definitely give them easier names to pronounce if I was writing the book today. Thankfully, all the character names are pretty much all easily readable for dyslexic people like myself, so no one should have a problem with that when reading the book. It will just be the different types of elves that people might get a little bit confused with or struggle to pronounce. It was a learning curve. It was one of the first books I actually wrote properly, not including like online forum RPGs and stuff like that. But yeah, it's something to learn from. So if you ever write a book, take my advice, make sure you can pronounce words yourself. You'll thank me for it. There is a book too. It needs editing before I put it back up on Amazon Prime and Kindle. Because when I was writing that book, I was writing like many books at the same time. Do not recommend it. Terrible idea. But I ended up confusing my tenses quite a lot. Lucky enough, I didn't write in first person, although I almost did once or twice. It's definitely something to learn from. Anyway, so that's it for today, because I need to edit this before I go to bed. Just a reminder, I am on holiday, so when you see this video, I will be on holiday already, because this is going to be a scheduled video. But I will do a live stream when I get back, hopefully. I don't know what day that will be, because I don't know what my shifts are yet. That means I also have to check on that. Potentially Monday if I'm not in work. Otherwise, I will stream at some other point during the week, when I have a day off and I'm free. I'll try and do some videos like while I'm on holiday, like if it's a rainy day or during the night when I know everyone else is in bed or something, or if they're all like taking the dogs for a walk and I've got like 5 minutes to myself. Obviously I can't promise anything, but I'll definitely try and get like some sort of stuff done while I'm on holiday, because I will be taking my laptop, mostly just so I've got something to do if, again, it's like a rainy day or whatever. So we'll see. I probably won't have internet. So for those of you on my Discord channel, if I don't reply, chances are I just don't have the internet for it. But otherwise, hopefully have a good week and take care of yourselves, stay hydrated. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, which is a couple of things, but it's just a phrase. Anyway, I'll see you in the next one. Nostar!